Hello student, my name is Wala El-Magid. I'm responsible for Middle 2. Now demonstrate reproductive. First thing we must know about what's meant by flower. Flower is short stem whose leaves are modified to form different part of the flower and it's an organ of sexual reproduction. What's meant by inflorescence? It's a group of flower arranged on the same axil. Now we must know about the four part of the flower. The first part is first whorl, called calyx. Calyx is the first whorl in the plant. It consists of a green leaves, each one of them called sepal. What is the function? It's to protect inner part of the flower. Number 2 is corolla. Corolla is second part in the flower. It consists of colorful and scented leaves, each one of them called petals. What is the function? Colorful to attract insect and scented to attract the insect and protect the reproductive organ. Number 3 is endometrium. Endometrium is a third part in the flower. It's a male reproductive organ of the flower and one of them called stamen. The upper part is in the stamen, it's called anther, and the lower part is called filament. Number 4 is gynoecium. Gynoecium is the fourth one or innermost whorl in the flower. So it's a called female reproductive organ and it's responsible for produce ovule. Ovule, what's meant by ovule? It's a small part to produce a small flower. Now the flower is divided. We can classify the flower into male flower, female flower, bisexual, or hermaphrodite flower. Female flower or male flower. First one is male flower. They contain male reproductive organ. It's called endometrium, like palm, maize, pumpkin. The female flower, they contain only female reproductive organ, like palm, maize, and pumpkin. And bisexual or hermaphrodite flower, they contain both male and female reproductive organ, like tulip and petunia and the wallflower. So, what's meant by pollination and how can the flower reproduction make reproduction? First one is pollination. What's meant by pollination? It's a process of transfer pollen grain, a small part from male to the flower anther to the stigmas. So we have two kinds of the pollination, self-pollination and mixed pollination. Self-pollination, it's a transfer of pollen grain from anther of flower to the stigmas of the same flower. But mixed pollination, it's transfer of pollination or pollen grain from anther of flower to the stigmas, but another flower and in another plant, but in the same. So the first one, or we talk about the method of mixed or cross-pollination. Number 1, we can make pollination by air. The plant can make pollination by air or by wind. So we have a definite character, like anther of flower must be hanged to be opened by air. Anther produce a big number of pollen grain to compensate or to produce a large pollen grain. The pollen grain are light in weight and dry to be easily carried by air, and the stigma are feathers, sticky-like, to catch pollen grain more faster. Number 2, pollination by insect. Pollination by insect is occurred by insect, so it have many characters like petals are be colored and scented to attract insect to feed on its nectar. What's meant by nectar? That mean honey. Pollen grain are sticky and have a coarse surface to stick on insect body. So we can make pollination by another way, artificial. So the human must be interference in this process to ensure the pollination occur between plant and another, like palm tree. And the second one is fertilization. After after pollination occurred, second one is fertilization. What's meant by fertilization? It's a process of fusion of nucleus of pollen grain, small part from male gamete, with nucleus of ovum to form zygote. Zygote, that mean the small flower. Okay, so we place a sugar solution on pollen grain. We will notice that pollen grain will produce a tube, a great tube, and it's travel to produce a tube that can reach to the micropyle. Micropyle, the part in ovary that can transfer male gamete nucleus to the female gamete nucleus. So we must know about fertilization. Number one, after pollination and pollen grain tube reach to the micropyle, the nucleus that found in pollen grain enter to the nucleus of ovule that make seeds. So the ovule develop and become seeds, and the ovary develop and become fruit. If have a one seeds, that mean have a single that have one seeds, so it's called single fruits. And if the ovary contain many ovule, and so it's give many fruits like pea and peas. So if we have a single fruits like olive and peach, so ovary contain one ovule. If we have a many fruit, so the ovary contain many ovules. So second one, it can make asexual. That mean that no need for male gamete and female gamete, no need for pollen grain, and no need for ovum. The first one, it's called vegetative reproduction. So it's called nature vegetative reproduction. Like what? Like rhizomes, cords, tuber, palm, and offshoot. The first thing is tuber. What's meant by tuber? Is a root, have a sweet potato or a stem of as potatoes. Like I have a small thing that if we cut and grow, it will give a shoot system and a root system. Number two is reproduction by cutting. A cut is a part of root or stem or leaf that if well cultivated in the soil, it give a root system. So the number three is reproduction by grafting. By grafting, we need some called sign and stock. Sign and stock that have two ways. Number one is grafting by attachment. Number two is grafting by wedge. Grafting by attachment, in which sign is attached to the stalk like mango tree, and grafting by wedge, that we must cut a sign in the form of wedge and insert it inside the stalk. So the produced fruit by grafting belongs type of sign. The type of sign. Number four is tissue culture. It's a process of multiplying a small part of the plant to get many identical parts. So we can take a small part from the plant and put it in hormones and solution or sugary solution, and we'll get shoot system and root system. Thank you for listening.